Tonight, an astonishing allegation. Canadian politicians accepting perks to share privileged information. The revealing report about officials willingly working with foreign states.
There has been big problems in terms of transmission of information.
The quiet job action that could delay your travel plans.
It's just too important to the government to keep the borders open.
Plus, flight fares on the way up.
Airline tickets will take a skyrocketing jump.
And can your eyes help diagnose dementia using artificial intelligence to detect Alzheimer's?
There's no pain, no harm to the patient.
And from the gallery to the greens.
My heart started pumping pretty good, but I was excited about it.
A lucky fan swings into action at the Canadian Open.
Just kept getting high fives.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina. Reporting tonight, Mirella Fernandez.
Good evening. We begin with a stunning allegation of unethical and possibly illegal behavior by some members of Parliament and senators. A new report by the Security and Intelligence Committee suggests a few are knowingly engaging in foreign interference for their own benefit. From Ottawa tonight, here's CTV's Judy Trent.
A new report reveals that a small number of MPs helped foreign nations, mainly China and India, meddle in Canadian democracy. After analyzing a trove of top-secret documents, a National Security and Intelligence Committee found some MPs and senators were semi-witting or witting participants in foreign interference.
We are absolutely committed to evolving and strengthening the measures that are in place. We're the ones that asked the National Security and Intelligence Committee to do this work.
Before and during election campaigns, some politicians engaged in unethical and even illegal behavior. Examples included communicating with embassies to help mobilize support from diaspora groups, accepting funds from proxies, and providing privileged information to foreign operatives. After getting elected, one MP passed on information to India. The names of politicians benefiting from foreign interference were not named.
Much of this interference occurs not at the very highest levels, but at the nomination levels.
Once elected, those unnamed politicians were also working to persuade fellow parliamentarians on behalf of foreign actors. The report says that political staffers were sought after as proxies and journalists were targeted. During the foreign interference inquiry, the Prime Minister and his cabinet testified they didn't receive some of the intelligence.
The biggest issue is information. How do we find who has the information, when do they have it, and who are they giving it to?
The federal government has tabled legislation to fight foreign interference with potential prison time and steep fines. All parties support passing the bill quickly. Important, because foreign actors are targeting all parties at every level of government. Mirella.
Judy, thank you. So Canada's Chief Justice is urging politicians to denounce attacks on the judicial system, saying they undermine public confidence in that institution.
It is one thing to express disagreement with a decision, but it is another thing altogether to criticize it because of who the judge is or how they were appointed.
Justice Richard Wagner says he's also concerned about court decisions being weaponized for political means. During his annual news conference, Wagner called for more resources to prevent delays, which can lead to people walking free without a trial. Get ready for some travel delays. Later this week, border guards are in a legal strike position, but they are deemed essential service providers, so they can't walk off the job. CTV's Christina Tenalia joins us now. Christina, what kind of action can they actually take?
Mirella, Canadian travelers could be impacted at land, air, and water border crossings. That is, if border officers engage in a kind of quiet job action. The union represents some 9,000 border officers at all points of entry. They're in a labor dispute with their employer, the Canada Border Services Agency, and the Treasury Board. The border officers have been without a collective agreement for 2 years. The two sides are in mediation with a strike mandate set for Thursday.
On the employer side, there's been no willingness to negotiate anything. To give you an idea of how badly it's gone, We were never even given a salary offer at the bargaining table. It's been appalling.
90% of these frontline border officers are designated as essential, which means they cannot stop working during a strike and that they must provide uninterrupted border services. But border workers have broad discretion when it comes to asking questions. So they could take longer to ask travelers questions or ask more questions, essentially slowing things down. And the slowdown could have a big impact on the economy.
The other disruptor, which is even bigger, is the flow of goods and services that crosses all the border points every year in Canada. We're talking enormous amounts of money, $2.5 billion crosses the border. Remember, 2/3 of Canada's GDP is traded, meaning we exported or imported. So the impact is enormous.
Border officers are demanding pay parity with other law enforcement officers and better retirement benefits. The two sides are expected to resume mediation on Tuesday. Morella.
All right, Christina, thanks for the heads up. A getaway by air will likely cost more this year. The Airlines Association says several factors feed into this, like inflation. But one critic says the reason costs are climbing here is because Canada lacks competition. That story tonight from CTV's Kathy Lee.
The price to fly is going to soar for travelers already paying for expensive airfare.
My family and I traveled a couple years ago and the cost just kept going up.
The International Air Transport Association, made up of airline industry leaders, said carriers are still recovering from the pandemic, but other factors will drive up ticket prices.
With margins of 3%, there's no way the industry can absorb the additional or the potential additional costs that we'll face.
Those additional costs from inflation, the price of jet fuel, and a backlog in new aircraft production.
Those new airplanes, would come into play in as much as they're there to replace older airplanes, more expensive to maintain, use more fuel.
The industry also feeling the pressure to use lower carbon jet fuel or sustainable aviation fuel that's very limited in supply and expensive to produce.
The cost of SAF has to come down. Otherwise, that cost is going to be right in the consumer's bill. Airline tickets will take a skyrocketing jump.
What the airlines are trying to do is to shift that equilibrium to a higher price, to convince the public that for reasons A, B, or C, or whatever they can say, we need to charge you more and you need to accept it. We need some solutions. And in Canada, at least, I would recommend opening up the domestic market for trustworthy foreign airlines. So there is an excessive protectionism of local industry, local airlines, and that's not healthy for the consumers.
To combat pricey airfare, some are avoiding international travel.
Probably we're not going to be going to those destinations because, you just you have a budget. You use your budget and you want to make it cost effective.
The association predicts that globally, airline revenue will reach nearly $1 trillion, and there will be close to 5 billion travelers this year. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
Avalanche conditions are hampering the search for 3 experienced climbers who were last seen Friday in BC.
This storm is causing a lot of low cloud, a lot of really dark skies, and heavy rain.
Squamish Search and Rescue was forced to ground its operations on the weekend, saying the area was too unsafe for a drone or a military helicopter. Today, rescuers are on standby, ready to restart once weather conditions improve. It wasn't bad weather that led to a bus rollover in Cuba. At least 1 person is dead and dozens injured, including 6 children, after a vehicle carrying Quebec tourists crashed near the Santa Clara airport.
I had blood all over my arm, my leg. I'm cut on my hand.
Air Transat confirms the 38 passengers who were booked on a Montreal-bound flight were on board when it crashed. An airline spokesperson says an oncoming car lost control and struck the bus, causing the rollover. They say eyes are the window to the soul, but what if they're also a window to the brain? Researchers in Saskatchewan are working on an AI algorithm that would detect Alzheimer's through an eye scan. With about 1 million Canadians expected to have some type of dementia by 2030, this technology could mean early intervention and better outcomes. CTV's Alison Bamford reports tonight.
A routine retina scan during a regular eye exam could be the ticket to detecting Alzheimer's early.
The eyeballs are an extension of the brain.
By looking at the findings in the eye, we might be able to at least raise a suspicion of potential for Alzheimer's.
Previous research suggests changes to the retina and optic nerve can indicate Alzheimer's decades before symptoms occur. Now, University of Saskatchewan researchers are using that information and artificial intelligence to develop a new screening tool for the disease.
This is non-invasive, and there is no pain, no harm to the patient.
It's a first-of-its-kind project funded through the Saskatchewan Health Research Foundation, the group looking to collect 20 years' worth of retina scans from patients who were recently diagnosed with Alzheimer's to compare them to healthy patients. From there, they'll use AI to train an algorithm that can detect patterns of early degeneration.
If we train more and more and more, we will get more accurate results.
Alzheimer's has no cure, but if caught early, a change in lifestyle and diet could significantly slow the disease's progression.
A majority of the patients that I see in my clinic are seniors and elderly patients who are at a risk for developing this problem. So it might be a very good chance for early detection.
With enough patients and data, researchers say they could develop an accurate algorithm within the next 2 years. And if it works, there's talk that the same approach could be applied to other diseases like Parkinson's. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
It is a complete lack of progress that's been called out by the Assembly of First Nations National Chief. It's been 5 years since the release of a report that detailed what needs to be done to better protect Indigenous women and girls. Cindy Woodhouse says governments haven't moved on most of the recommendations. CTV's Mike Couture reports.
5 years ago, the Liberal government was given 231 recommendations in a historic report on missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in this country. Of the 150 calls to action focused on First Nations people, National Chief Cindy Woodhouse says just 2 have been implemented.
The government's response to the national inquiry into missing and murdered women and girls represents a historic low point. It echoes a persistent pattern of failure.
Woodhouse blames all levels of government for the slow progress on every issue, from adequate housing to clean drinking water and policing. The Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations contends the federal government has made progress on more than half of the recommendations in its purview.
There are some significant investments that are going towards issues like policing, as well as housing. We have, as per the Urban Rural Northern Housing in Budget 2023, we have $4 billion, an additional $1 billion came in this year.
Progress and implementation are 2 entirely different things.
The former head of the Commission on Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls gives the federal government a failing grade for what they've done over the last 5 years, despite billions in spending.
We have to find out how efficient and how effective that money has been in terms of spending, or even if the money has been spent.
Buller says lip service and promises aren't enough. First Nations activists believe governments need to recommit to improving the lives of Indigenous communities in this country.
We're not just talking about something minor. We're talking about life and death for thousands of Indigenous women and girls.
Both the Minister and Prime Minister admit more needs to be done to address the systemic shortfalls. And the Liberal government believes it can do the work to end this crisis in Indigenous communities. Morella?
Mike's in Ottawa tonight. Coming up, Toyota's troubles.
Certainly quite embarrassing for them.
The car maker admits to deceiving drivers. Plus, a spectator's stroke of luck at the Canadian Open. It's a convocation beside an encampment at the University of Toronto. Protesters laying flowers on empty chairs, symbolizing Palestinian students killed during the war who will never graduate. Just meters away, official ceremonies were taking place, with fencing partially blocking the view of the encampment. Groups opposed to the protest say enough is enough.
This hate fest has gone on for far too long.
But protesters are refusing to leave. The university has filed an injunction in court to have them forcibly removed. The hearing is June 19th, and that is after most of the graduation ceremonies. Israel is confirming tonight 4 more Israeli hostages are dead. It's believed the men between 51 and 84 years old died several months ago. Their bodies are being held in Gaza. The Israeli Defense Force says intelligence points to the men being killed in Khan Yunis around the time of Israel's operation there. For the first time in the U.S., the child of a sitting president is on trial. Joe Biden's son Hunter faces 3 felony charges for buying a gun while having drug problems. Jury selection's underway in Wilmington, Delaware. The U.S. president didn't say much other than, "I'm the president, I'm also a dad, and have boundless love for my son." If convicted, Hunter Biden could face 25 years in prison. The glass ceiling has been shattered in Mexico. The country has elected its first woman president, and it was a landslide victory for Claudia Sheinbaum, the former mayor of Mexico City and a climate scientist. Sheinbaum secured close to 60% of the vote, making her victory the largest ever in the country's democratic history. Sheinbaum is also the first Jewish person to lead the majority Catholic country. She starts her 6-year term on October 1st. Toyota's success can be attributed to decades of producing high-quality, safe vehicles. So it's quite shocking that today the Japanese automaker admitted to cheating. It faked the results of safety tests on 7 different models, and it's not the only Japanese car maker to do it. Here's CTV's Garrett Berry.
As the person responsible, said Toyota's top boss, "I am truly sorry." The company admitting today it missed standards on safety tests for some of its most popular Japanese vehicles. Other car makers like Honda and Yamaha also acknowledged similar issues. Regulators ordered 2 models from Mazda to be pulled from production in the Japanese market and 3 from Toyota.
They did some testing on the crash testing, and they provided data on the driver's side, but didn't submit information on the passenger side. Does that mean they didn't do the testing? Of course they did.
This industry watcher says it's more of an honest mistake than an intentional cover-up.
They might have even exceeded government requirements, but if you didn't do exactly what they asked you to do and submit the paperwork in a way that they wanted to submit, they'll be considered out of compliance.
The vehicles in question were produced in Japan, underwent Japanese inspection for Japanese consumers. In the Canadian market, where production and testing are different, both Toyota and Mazda told CTV News today no change to vehicle availability in this country. But some critics call it a black eye for the Japanese sector, where the industry has been hit with multiple testing controversies in the past few years.
I mean, it's certainly quite embarrassing for them. It seems to be part of an issue that started a number of years ago. You know, they're digging around and looking for the people who aren't quite doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Japanese officials will be at Toyota headquarters tomorrow for an on-site inspection. Garrett Berry, CTV News, St. John's.
Straight ahead, a wild playoff ride. The Edmonton Oilers under pressure to end the Canadian Cup curse.
We want to go! We want to go! We want to go!
The Edmonton Oilers' journey to the Stanley Cup final has sparked a sense of national pride. Fans are in party mode while players are embracing the support and pressure of bringing the cup back to Canada for the first time in 31 years. CTV's Nicole Lampa has that.
From cheers and tears, Oilers fans were in unison with the team.
It's unbelievable. I almost cried. We're going to win the cup, baby!
Many dressed for success.
You know, we bought these suits in 2006. This is what it's all about. We bought these to win a Stanley Cup. Bring it on!
Oilers superfan Magoo was unable to hold back his Oilers pride.
Right after that whistle blew and we won the game, man, I had tears of joy. I couldn't help myself.
Thousands filled the streets outside of Rogers Place, refusing to leave after the game. The echoes of their celebration were heard by the team inside during the post-game interviews, calling fans the 7th player on the ice in a game that has made them the official best in the West.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, this is what we play for. You know, they've
been through a lot of heartbreak as well, so certainly the best fans in the league.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, now too an Oilers fan, has tasked the team to bring the Stanley Cup home to Canada, a request not taken lightly by Captain Connor McDavid.
We got great Canadian fans, and it feels good to maybe unite the country a little bit and have something to bring people together.
The Oilers now have 5 days to rest with Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final in Florida on Saturday. Nicole Lampa, CTV News, Edmonton.
After the break, a caddy cameo. A casual fan gets the call to carry bags at the Canadian Open. An impromptu opportunity played out for a random sports fan on the golf course. He suddenly became the star of the show at the Canadian Open. CTV's Mike Walker on how he chipped in.
An amazing amount of messages.
Paul Emerson says the messages and phone calls have been constant after an unimaginable experience at the PGA's Canadian Open.
So fan is now putting on the caddy bib.
That felt like something out of a movie.
We watched Shane Lowry and CTV hit their approach shots. Then we started walking up the hole to catch them at the green. And then we heard a loud thud and groan.
Emerson quickly found himself inside the ropes on the third hole, donning a caddy's bib after pro golfer CT Pan's caddy suffered an injury and couldn't continue.
So as he approached the ropes, I simply said to CT Pan, I said, "Do you need help?" And he said, "Yes." I can't believe that I'm caddying at the RBC Canadian Open. My heart started pumping pretty good.
For 2 holes, the lawyer from Aurora subbed in for well-known caddy Mike Cowan, who has carried clubs for Tiger Woods in the past, lugging Pan's equipment around the Hamilton Golf and Country Club.
CT at that moment recommended that I just, stay off of the greens. Certainly there was no reason to believe he would ask me for tips. And if he'd ever seen me play, he would know not to.
A rare moment captured by the TV cameras and broadcast for the world to see, and the messages were instant.
So actually I mentioned to CT Pan, I said, I think we must be in a featured group because my watch is going crazy. And he said, yeah, maybe you should take it off. And I agreed, but then 2 moments later I got replaced, so.
He was relieved on the 5th hole by a member of the caddy services team, returning to being a fan with a tale to tell.
A lot of people were reaching out as I was trying to enjoy the round as a fan. Just kept getting high fives and people asking for selfies, so that was a definitely unique experience, feeling like someone people knew.
He's caddied once before for an amateur golfer, but never a pro event.
That was pretty wild. I'm a pretty big golf fan. I made a joke about the fact that I was hoping to have a good view on the 4th tee, and it seemed to have worked out.
And is cherishing this rare and short moment on the links.
Once in a lifetime sort of experience that certainly won't happen again.
Mike Walker, CTV News, Toronto.
Good time for him. That's a wrap of the day. Thanks for sharing your time with us. I'm Morella Fernandez. Omar's back with you tomorrow. For all of us here at CTV National News, good night.